The greatest barrier between you and financial abundance is not a lack of opportunity, education, talent, or resources. It is the invisible image you carry of yourself. Long before money appears in your bank account, it appears in your consciousness. Long before wealth becomes visible in your outer world, it is accepted as truth within your inner world. Most people spend years trying to change their circumstances while leaving untouched the hidden mental blueprint that continues recreating the same results. Think about that for a moment. How can a person consistently create something different while remaining the same internally? If your subconscious mind has accepted limitation as normal, struggle as familiar, and scarcity as inevitable, then no amount of effort alone can permanently change your outcomes. The subconscious mind is always working to keep your external life aligned with your internal identity. It is not concerned with what you wish for. It responds to what you believe you are. Right now, as you listen, there may be ideas about money operating beneath your awareness, ideas inherited from childhood, ideas absorbed from family conversations, ideas gathered from disappointments and failures. Perhaps you learned that wealth belongs to other people. Perhaps you were taught that money creates problems. Perhaps success seemed distant, reserved for a fortunate few. These beliefs may have settled into your subconscious years ago, quietly shaping decisions, opportunities, and expectations without your conscious permission. Yet here is the remarkable truth. No belief is permanent unless you continue feeding it. The human mind is not fixed. Your paradigm can change. Your identity can evolve. Your future can become dramatically different from your past the moment you stop treating old conditioning as absolute truth. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine something extraordinary. Imagine that every financial limitation you have accepted about yourself is nothing more than a story repeated so often that it feels real. What if the ceiling you believe exists above your life is only a mental construct? What if the boundaries around your potential are self-imposed? What possibilities would emerge if you stopped identifying with scarcity and started identifying with abundance? Take a slow breath and allow your attention to settle inward. Feel yourself becoming still, not because you are escaping reality, but because you are connecting with the deeper level of mind where transformation begins. Beneath the noise of daily life exists a powerful creative intelligence. This is the part of you that influences perception, behavior, emotional responses, and outcomes. It is the fertile soil from which your results grow. As you breathe, imagine releasing every thought that says money is difficult to obtain. Imagine releasing every memory that convinced you life must be a struggle. Let those ideas drift away like leaves carried downstream by a gentle current. You do not need to fight them. You do not need to argue with them. Simply let them go. Now imagine a different reality emerging within you. See yourself as someone who naturally attracts opportunities, someone who notices possibilities where others see obstacles, someone who expects prosperity because prosperity has become part of their self-image. Feel the emotional shift that accompanies this identity. Notice how your posture changes. Notice how your energy changes. Notice how certainty begins replacing doubt. Your subconscious mind responds powerfully to emotion. It learns through repetition and feeling. This means that every time you emotionally experience abundance, you strengthen a new internal pattern. Every time you feel gratitude before receiving, confidence before evidence, and possibility before results, you are teaching your subconscious a new truth. There was once an ordinary woman working a modest administrative job. She was intelligent, hardworking, and deeply frustrated. Every month seemed like a cycle of financial pressure. She constantly worried about bills and spoke frequently about how difficult life had become. Then something unexpected happened. She attended a personal development seminar where she encountered a simple but unsettling question. Who would you be without your limitations? The question stayed with her for weeks. She realized that her entire identity had become attached to financial struggle. She had unconsciously built a self-image around surviving rather than thriving. She began changing the conversations she had with herself. She stopped defining herself by her current circumstances. She started visualizing herself as capable, resourceful, and financially abundant. She practiced feeling gratitude for opportunities that had not yet arrived. She made decisions from her future identity instead of her old fears. Nothing changed immediately. Then everything changed gradually. She noticed opportunities she had previously ignored. She developed new skills. She started a small side business. Her confidence attracted valuable relationships. Within a few years, her income had multiplied several times over. People around her assumed luck had finally arrived. They could not see the deeper truth. Her transformation began long before the money appeared. It began the moment she changed her self-image. The same principle applies to you. The results you desire are often waiting on the other side of an identity shift, not a temporary burst of motivation, not wishful thinking, a genuine transformation in how you see yourself. When your self-image changes, your decisions change. When your decisions change, your actions change. When your actions change, your reality begins responding accordingly. Consider the frequency you are broadcasting into the world. Every thought carries energy. Every emotion influences perception. Fear narrows awareness. Scarcity contracts possibilities. Gratitude expands them. Confidence attracts action. The vibration of abundance is not about pretending. It is about aligning your thoughts, emotions, and expectations with the reality you wish to create. Imagine now that financial abundance is flowing toward you, not because money is magical, but because you have become receptive to opportunities, ideas, connections, and inspired action. Feel yourself deserving prosperity. Feel yourself capable of creating value. Feel yourself becoming the person who naturally welcomes wealth into their life. The future version of you already exists as a possibility. That version is making different decisions. That version thinks differently about challenges. That version no longer sees obstacles as evidence of failure, but as invitations to grow stronger. Every great achievement begins as an internal shift before it becomes an external reality. Stay with this feeling. Let it become familiar. Let abundance feel natural rather than distant. Let prosperity feel expected rather than hoped for. The subconscious mind accepts what is repeated with conviction. The more you occupy this new mental and emotional state, the more your paradigm begins reorganizing around it. And perhaps the most powerful realization of all is this: the wealth you seek is not something you must chase endlessly across the horizon. It begins the moment you recognize that the source of transformation has always been within you. The mind that once created limitation can create expansion. The identity that once accepted scarcity can embrace abundance. The person listening right now possesses far greater creative power than they have ever been led to believe. As you awaken to that truth, you stop waiting for life to change and become the force that changes it. If this message resonates with you, subscribe to Proctor Mindset Lab and begin transforming your mind today. Once you begin to understand that abundance is first an internal experience, an entirely new question emerges. If your outer world is reflecting your inner world, then what thoughts are you rehearsing every day without realizing it? What emotional patterns have become so familiar that they feel like part of your personality? Most people never examine these questions. They assume their circumstances create their thoughts, when in reality their thoughts are often recreating their circumstances. The subconscious mind does not distinguish between what is real and what is vividly imagined with emotion. This is why a single fearful thought can trigger a physical response throughout the body. Your heart rate changes, your breathing changes, your chemistry changes. The body responds as though the imagined event is happening now. Yet this same principle works in your favor when consciously applied. When you repeatedly imagine yourself operating from abundance, confidence, and certainty, your subconscious begins accepting those states as familiar. Familiarity is powerful. Human beings naturally move toward what feels familiar, even when what feels familiar is not serving them. This is why some people repeatedly return to unhealthy relationships, limiting environments, or self-defeating habits. Their subconscious is choosing familiarity over possibility. The challenge is not that abundance is unavailable. The challenge is that abundance may feel unfamiliar. Consider what happens when someone receives an unexpected opportunity. One person immediately sees potential, another immediately sees risk. One sees expansion, another sees danger. The opportunity itself remains the same. What changes is the paradigm through which it is viewed. Paradigms act like invisible filters. They determine what you notice, what you ignore, and what you believe is possible. Imagine wearing a pair of glasses tinted a dark shade for your entire life. Eventually, you would assume the world itself was dim. You would not realize the lens was altering your perception. Many people move through life wearing mental lenses created by years of conditioning. They believe they are seeing reality clearly, when in fact they are seeing reality through assumptions, fears, and inherited beliefs. This realization is not meant to discourage you, it is meant to liberate you. Because if the lens can be created, it can be changed. There is a profound difference between wanting money and becoming the kind of person who naturally creates value and attracts prosperity. Wanting often comes from a sense of lack. Becoming comes from a sense of growth. One energy chases, the other attracts. One focuses on what is missing. The other focuses on what is emerging. Notice how differently these two approaches feel. When you desperately chase something, you continuously reinforce the idea that you do not have it. Your attention remains fixed on absence. But when you focus on becoming, your attention shifts toward development, expansion, and possibility. You begin embodying qualities that naturally lead to different outcomes. The universe responds to what you are being as much as what you are doing. This is why emotional mastery is such an essential part of financial transformation. Many people believe money will finally make them feel secure. Yet security that depends entirely on external conditions remains fragile. True abundance begins when you cultivate inner stability regardless of temporary circumstances. Can you remain calm while pursuing a larger vision? Can you maintain faith while results are still invisible? Can you choose possibility when evidence has not yet arrived? These moments matter more than most people realize. Every challenge presents a choice between an old identity and a new one. The old identity reacts automatically. It doubts, it hesitates, it retreats into familiar limitations. The new identity responds differently. It pauses, it evaluates, it remembers a larger vision. It acts from intention rather than fear. Transformation rarely announces itself with dramatic fanfare. More often, it appears in small decisions repeated consistently over time. A new thought, a new interpretation, a new response to an old situation. These shifts may seem insignificant in the moment, but they gradually alter the trajectory of an entire life. Think of a ship crossing a vast ocean. A tiny adjustment in direction may appear meaningless at first. Yet over enough distance, that slight shift leads to an entirely different destination. The same is true for your thoughts, beliefs, and self-image. Small changes in consciousness create enormous changes in results when sustained over time. Many people underestimate their own creative power because they have become overly focused on current conditions. They look at their bank account, their environment, or their past experiences and conclude that these circumstances define them. But circumstances are snapshots, not identities. They are temporary expressions of previous thinking, not permanent declarations of future potential. You are not your current results. You are the consciousness producing those results. And consciousness can evolve. Imagine yourself standing at the threshold of a new chapter. Behind you are old stories about limitation, disappointment, and scarcity. Ahead of you is a version of yourself that sees opportunities more clearly, acts more boldly, and trusts more deeply in the power of growth. Which direction deserves your energy? Which story deserves your attention? Every day you answer that question, whether consciously or unconsciously. The remarkable thing about human potential is that it often remains hidden until demanded by a larger vision. People discover strengths they never knew they possessed when they commit to something greater than their fears. They uncover creativity they never realized existed. They develop resilience they once believed was impossible. The capacity for abundance already exists within you as potential energy waiting to be activated. The seed contains the tree. The possibility exists before the evidence. The future exists before it becomes visible. As you continue this journey of inner transformation, allow yourself to release the need to know exactly how every outcome will unfold. The subconscious mind works most effectively when it is guided by a clear vision rather than restricted by rigid expectations. Your responsibility is not to control every detail. Your responsibility is to become the person capable of receiving greater opportunities, creating greater value, and contributing at a higher level. And with each passing day, as your self-image expands, as your beliefs strengthen, and as your paradigm shifts toward possibility, you may begin noticing something extraordinary. The opportunities were not absent. The abundance was not withholding itself. The potential was never missing. What was changing was you. And as you change, the world you experience begins changing with you in ways that once seemed impossible. There comes a moment in every meaningful transformation when you can no longer blame the past for the future you are creating. This moment is uncomfortable because it removes excuses, but it is also empowering because it reveals where true power resides. The instant you recognize that your thoughts, perceptions, and emotional habits are influencing the direction of your life, you step into a level of responsibility that many people avoid. Yet hidden inside that responsibility is freedom. Freedom is not merely the ability to choose what happens around you. Freedom is the ability to choose how you respond to what happens around you. It is the capacity to direct your inner world regardless of external conditions. When this understanding becomes part of your identity, circumstances lose much of their power to control your emotional state. Many people spend years waiting for confidence before taking action. They assume confidence arrives first and action follows. In reality, confidence is often the result of acting despite uncertainty. The subconscious mind gains evidence from experience. Every time you move forward while carrying a larger vision, you teach your mind something profound. You teach it that fear is not a stop sign. You teach it that growth is possible. You teach it that your future does not need to resemble your past. Think about how much of your life has been shaped by assumptions you never consciously chose. Assumptions about money, assumptions about success, assumptions about what people like you are capable of achieving. Most of these ideas were absorbed long before you possessed the awareness to question them. Yet now you do possess that awareness. Now you have the ability to examine beliefs instead of automatically obeying them. Ask yourself something powerful. What if the beliefs limiting your income are not facts? What if they are merely interpretations? What if the stories you have repeated about your financial potential are incomplete? Questions like these create openings in the mind. They loosen the grip of old paradigms. They invite new possibilities to enter consciousness. The subconscious mind thrives on repetition. But repetition alone is not enough. Emotion is the catalyst that gives ideas their power. This is why some memories remain vivid for decades while others disappear within days. Emotion imprints experiences deeply into consciousness. When you combine empowering thoughts with elevated emotions such as gratitude, faith, enthusiasm, and appreciation, you accelerate the process of internal transformation. Imagine waking each morning with a genuine expectation that something valuable can happen, not because you are ignoring reality, but because you are choosing to engage reality from a higher level of awareness. This subtle shift changes everything. You begin paying attention to possibilities that previously escaped your notice. You become more receptive to ideas. You listen differently. You observe differently, you think differently, and because you think differently, you act differently. The world often appears to reward action, but beneath action lies perception. Two people can stand in the same environment and experience completely different realities because they perceive opportunities differently. One sees limitations everywhere. The other sees possibilities hidden within challenges. One expects disappointment. The other expects growth. Expectation is powerful, not because expectation magically changes circumstances, but because expectation influences behavior. It affects what you notice, how you interpret events, and whether you persist when obstacles appear. People with an abundance mindset are not free from setbacks. They simply refuse to allow setbacks to define their identity. A setback is an event. An identity is a decision. Never confuse the two. One of the most dangerous habits in the pursuit of financial abundance is attaching your worth to temporary results. When income fluctuates, confidence fluctuates. When circumstances change, self-esteem changes. This creates emotional instability because your identity becomes dependent on external conditions. But your worth is not determined by a number. Your value is not measured solely by what you currently possess. Your potential is not limited by what has happened up to this point. The most successful individuals often possess an unwavering sense of self-worth long before visible success arrives. They understand that external achievement is an expression of internal development, not the source of it. As you continue this meditation, picture yourself standing in a vast field at sunrise. The horizon stretches endlessly before you. The first rays of light begin touching the landscape. In the distance, possibilities that were once hidden start becoming visible. This is what happens when awareness expands. The opportunities may have always existed, but now you are able to see them. Feel the calm certainty that comes from knowing your future is not fixed. Feel the relief that comes from releasing old labels. Feel the excitement of recognizing that growth is available at every moment. You are not trapped by previous decisions. You are not confined by former limitations. You are not required to remain the person you were yesterday. Every thought you entertain is either reinforcing an existing identity or helping create a new one. Every emotion you repeatedly experience is either strengthening old conditioning or establishing new patterns. Every decision is a vote for the person you are becoming. This means transformation is happening all the time. The question is whether it is happening by design or by default. Most people allow their environment to program their thinking. They absorb fear from headlines. They absorb limitation from conversations. They absorb doubt from people who abandoned their own dreams long ago. Without realizing it, they surrender control of their mental environment. But you have another option. You can become the architect of your consciousness. You can choose what ideas deserve your attention. You can choose which beliefs deserve reinforcement. You can deliberately cultivate thoughts that align with the future you intend to create. The mind is a garden, whether you consciously plant it or not. Left unattended, weeds appear naturally. Limiting beliefs, fear, resentment, and scarcity thinking grow quickly when left unchallenged. But when you intentionally plant empowering ideas and consistently nurture them, a different landscape begins to emerge. This is not about pretending difficulties do not exist. It is about refusing to give difficulties authority over your identity. Challenges may appear, delays may occur, unexpected obstacles may arise. Yet none of these conditions have the power to determine who you become unless you allow them to. And perhaps that is one of the deepest truths about abundance. Wealth is not merely the accumulation of money. It is the expansion of consciousness. It is the development of a mind that sees possibilities where others see impossibilities. It is the cultivation of emotional stability in uncertain times. It is the willingness to grow beyond previous versions of yourself again and again. The person capable of creating extraordinary results is not someone outside of you. It is not a distant ideal reserved for a select few. It is a possibility already waiting within your own consciousness, patiently expanding each time you choose faith over fear, vision over limitation, and growth over comfort. As your awareness deepens, you may begin noticing something that once seemed invisible. The moments that shape a life are rarely the dramatic ones people celebrate publicly. More often they occur in silence, a private decision, a new belief accepted as true, a commitment made when nobody is watching. These quiet moments alter the direction of your future because they alter the direction of your thinking. The world tends to focus on visible results. People admire success after it appears. They celebrate achievement after it becomes undeniable. Yet what remains hidden is the internal journey that preceded every external breakthrough. Long before abundance becomes visible, there is an expansion of consciousness. Long before wealth appears in form, it appears as an idea. Long before a person changes their circumstances, they change the way they perceive themselves. This is why self-image remains one of the most powerful forces shaping human experience. Your self-image acts like an internal thermostat. If your results rise beyond what your identity believes is normal, subconscious mechanisms often pull you back toward familiar territory, not because you lack potential, but because the subconscious seeks consistency. It attempts to keep your outer world aligned with your inner beliefs. Imagine someone who secretly believes they are unworthy of financial success. Even if opportunities appear, they may hesitate, they may procrastinate, they may doubt themselves at critical moments. From the outside, it appears as though circumstances are preventing progress. Yet beneath the surface, an unseen identity is influencing behavior. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine someone who deeply believes they are capable, resourceful, adaptable, and deserving of growth. Challenges still appear, obstacles still arise, yet their response is entirely different. They interpret difficulties as temporary. They view setbacks as information rather than personal failures. Their identity supports progress rather than resisting it. The difference between these two individuals is not intelligence. It is not luck. It is not background. It is the paradigm through which they view themselves and the world. As you continue this inner journey, allow yourself to imagine releasing every label that no longer serves your highest potential. Perhaps there are identities you have carried for years without questioning them. The person who always struggles, the person who never catches a break, the person who is unlucky with money, the person who lacks opportunities. These labels are not truths. They are stories, and stories can be rewritten. Feel the weight of those old identities beginning to dissolve. Imagine them falling away like shadows disappearing before the morning sun. You do not need to fight them. You do not need to prove them wrong. You simply stop feeding them with your attention. Attention is one of the most valuable forms of energy you possess. Whatever you consistently focus upon expands within your awareness. Focus on limitation, and your mind becomes highly skilled at finding evidence of limitation. Focus on opportunity, and your awareness begins detecting possibilities that once went unnoticed. Have you ever purchased something new and suddenly started seeing it everywhere? The object was always present. What changed was your awareness. The same principle operates throughout every area of life. Opportunities may exist all around you, but if your subconscious is programmed to expect scarcity, it filters many of them from conscious awareness. This is why abundance begins within perception before it appears within possession. The wealthiest mindset is not one that constantly asks, "What can I get?" It asks, "What can I become?" Because becoming creates a foundation that cannot be easily shaken. External conditions may rise and fall, but the person you become remains with you. There is tremendous power in understanding this distinction. When your focus shifts toward becoming more disciplined, more creative, more valuable, more resilient, and more aware, abundance becomes a natural byproduct. You stop chasing outcomes from a place of desperation. Instead, you create conditions that make greater outcomes increasingly likely. Consider how differently life feels when you operate from trust rather than fear. Fear contracts. Trust expands. Fear fixates on what might go wrong. Trust remains open to what might go right. Fear drains energy from the present moment. Trust directs energy toward constructive action. This does not mean ignoring risks or abandoning wisdom. It means refusing to let fear become the dominant voice guiding your decisions. Many people unknowingly build emotional relationships with struggle. They become so accustomed to stress, worry, and uncertainty that peace feels unfamiliar. Yet abundance is not merely financial. It is emotional, it is mental, it is spiritual. True prosperity includes the ability to experience gratitude in the present while pursuing a greater future. Pause for a moment and imagine your life 1 year from now. Imagine that you remain committed to expanding your self-image every day. Imagine that you consistently chose empowering thoughts over limiting ones. Imagine that you strengthened your emotional mastery. Imagine that you developed greater faith in your own potential. What would change? How would you speak differently? How would you carry yourself? What decisions would you make? Who would you become? Notice how your mind begins constructing possibilities the moment you ask these questions. The future is shaped first in imagination. Every innovation, achievement, business, creation, and breakthrough existed as a mental image before becoming reality. You possess this same creative faculty. Your imagination is not a trivial mental activity. It is one of the most powerful tools available to human consciousness. When directed intentionally, it becomes a bridge between current conditions and future possibilities. This is why vision matters. Without vision, people become trapped by circumstances. With vision, circumstances become temporary stepping stones. Vision allows you to see beyond immediate appearances. It reminds you that current results do not define ultimate outcomes. It helps you remain connected to a larger possibility during moments of uncertainty. And uncertainty is not your enemy. Uncertainty is often the environment where growth occurs. The seed disappears into darkness before it emerges into light. The caterpillar dissolves before transformation becomes visible. The greatest shifts in consciousness frequently happen beneath the surface before evidence appears in the external world. Trust this process, not blindly, but intentionally. Trust that every empowering thought strengthens a new neural pathway. Trust that every elevated emotion conditions a new internal state. Trust that every courageous decision reinforces a stronger identity. The person you are becoming is being shaped right now through the thoughts you entertain, the beliefs you nurture, and the vision you hold. And with each passing day, as your awareness expands beyond old limitations, you may begin realizing that abundance is not something waiting for permission to enter your life. It has been waiting for you to fully recognize your own capacity to create, receive, and express it.
One of the most misunderstood ideas in personal development is the belief that people change their lives primarily through willpower. Most people assume that if they simply try harder, work longer, or become more motivated, their results will eventually improve. Yet if effort alone created success, many hard-working people would already be living the life they desire. The deeper truth is that behavior is rarely controlled by conscious desire. It is controlled by subconscious programming. Think about driving a car. When you first learned to drive, every movement required conscious attention. You had to think about the mirrors, the pedals, the steering wheel, and the traffic around you. After enough repetition, however, driving became automatic. You no longer needed to consciously think about every action because the behavior had been programmed into the subconscious mind. The same process happens with nearly every area of life. Your habits around money, confidence, relationships, productivity, and success are often operating on autopilot. You may consciously want one thing while your subconscious programming continues producing something completely different. This is why many people experience internal conflict. They want financial freedom, but continue making decisions that keep them financially stuck. They want confidence, but constantly engage in self-doubt. They want growth, but repeatedly choose familiar comfort. The problem is not a lack of desire. The problem is that the subconscious mind is following instructions that were programmed years earlier. To understand this more clearly, imagine a thermostat in a house. The thermostat is set to a specific temperature. If the room becomes too warm, the system adjusts. If the room becomes too cold, the system adjusts again. Its purpose is to maintain a familiar condition. Your self-image works much like that thermostat. Your self-image is the collection of beliefs you hold about yourself. It is your internal definition of who you are. It answers questions such as, what am I capable of? What do I deserve? What kind of person am I? What can I realistically achieve? Most people never consciously create their self-image. It develops gradually through childhood experiences, repeated feedback, emotional events, cultural influences, and personal interpretations. A child who repeatedly hears praise for creativity may grow up seeing themselves as creative. A child who repeatedly experiences criticism may begin seeing themselves as inadequate. Over time, these repeated experiences become accepted as truth. The important thing to understand is that the subconscious mind does not evaluate whether these beliefs are accurate. It simply accepts repeated information. This explains why two people can have similar abilities, yet produce dramatically different results. One person believes they can learn new skills, recover from failure, and create opportunities. Another believes they are limited, unlucky, or incapable. Their behavior eventually reflects those beliefs. Notice that the belief comes first. The result comes later. Many people mistakenly assume confidence comes from achievement. In reality, confidence often begins with belief. A person who believes they can improve is more likely to take action. Taking action creates experience. Experience creates skill. Skill produces results. The original belief started the entire chain reaction. This is why self-image is so powerful. People generally behave in ways that are consistent with how they see themselves. If someone sees themselves as financially irresponsible, they may struggle to manage money effectively even after learning financial strategies. If someone sees themselves as unhealthy, they may repeatedly abandon positive habits despite understanding what they should do. Their identity pulls them back toward what feels familiar. This is one reason lasting change can feel difficult. When people attempt to change behavior without changing identity, they often experience resistance. Imagine someone saying, "I want to become financially successful." That sounds positive, but beneath the surface they may also believe, "People like me never become wealthy." Which message do you think carries more influence? Usually the subconscious belief. The subconscious mind responds less to occasional positive thinking and more to repeated emotional conditioning. This brings us to another important principle. Beliefs are formed through repetition and emotion. Repetition alone creates familiarity. Emotion gives repetition power. Think about a memory from years ago that you still remember clearly. Chances are it carried strong emotional significance. Emotion acts like a highlighter for the subconscious mind. This is why emotionally charged experiences often shape beliefs so quickly. A painful financial failure may create a belief that money is difficult to earn. A humiliating experience may create a belief that speaking up is dangerous. A major success may create a belief that achievement is possible. The event itself is not the belief. The interpretation becomes the belief. This distinction matters because interpretations can change. You may not be able to alter the past, but you can alter the meaning you assign to it. One practical way to identify limiting beliefs is to pay attention to recurring thoughts and emotional reactions. Whenever you repeatedly hear yourself saying things like, "I'm not good at that," "I could never do that," "people like me don't succeed," or "money is always a struggle," stop and examine the statement. Ask yourself a simple question. Is this a fact, or is it a belief? Many limitations begin to weaken when they are questioned. Another effective practice is observing patterns in your life. Look at areas where you consistently produce the same result. Do you repeatedly avoid opportunities? Do you procrastinate when challenges appear? Do you become uncomfortable when progress begins? Patterns often reveal subconscious programming more clearly than intentions. Once you identify a limiting pattern, avoid trying to force immediate transformation. Identity shifts gradually. Instead, focus on small actions that support the new identity you want to develop. If you want to become more confident, begin by acting slightly more confident in everyday situations. If you want to become financially disciplined, start managing small amounts of money responsibly. If you want to become healthier, create one consistent habit rather than 10 ambitious ones. Each action sends new evidence to the subconscious mind. Over time, evidence reshapes identity. Eventually, you stop thinking, "I'm trying to become disciplined." You begin thinking, "I am a disciplined person." That shift is significant. When behavior becomes part of identity, consistency becomes much easier. Real transformation occurs when the subconscious mind accepts a new self-image as normal. The goal is not to become a different person overnight. The goal is to gradually become aware of the programming that has been running your life and intentionally replace it with beliefs that support growth. The most powerful realization is that your current identity is not fixed. It was learned, which means it can be relearned. The beliefs influencing your decisions today were formed through experience, repetition, and emotion. Through the same process, new beliefs can be developed. As your self-image expands, your behavior begins to change. As behavior changes, results begin to change. And as results change, they reinforce the new identity you are building. That is how lasting transformation occurs, not through force, but through a gradual shift in consciousness, belief, and self-perception.